everybody, my name is Mackenzie Loftus, and this is my final project. So what is my brand? My brand is called Angel Puppy Bags, and I'll go a little more into detail about what we are. So we are a brand that makes ethical handbags, accessories, etc. And some of the external factors we are going to probably be dealing with, or will be dealing with, is that the cost of living is high right now. And unfortunately, with being a more ethical brand, our prices are definitely going to be higher than, a brand that doesn't necessarily prioritize those things is going to be, if that makes sense. I'm also very against AI, and so that's probably going to make us a little bit slower in developing ideas, but I'm okay with that. And then also, some people might find things wrong with our brand, as always, that's pretty normal, right? But we're going to try our best to be as ethical as we can and improve. So why did I make up this brand? So I made this brand up because I constantly would see brands that would say, oh, we're ethical, oh, we're this and that, oh, whatever, and they would just be releasing, release micro trends constantly for the price of, $60, right? And it's like, okay, you say you're ethical and that you're recycling things, you're recycling materials, this and that, but you're not putting your money where your mouth is. You're not showing me that you care about it. And that's frustrating to me. That's incredibly frustrating to me. And I, want to reintroduce a slow fashion approach, right? I want to be able to, show the world that we can have a successful brand that doesn't fall into these fast fashion pits, essentially. And then this is just my brand statement. I'm gonna not necessarily talk too much about that, but it's basically saying what I said previously. So, I have a content calendar made, and essentially it's just gonna help us, get things kind of more streamlined, since it is gonna be a smaller team. And then this is just showing that content calendar that I just mentioned, just keeping things streamlined, keeping things ideas, because we're not following trends necessarily. I mean, we might follow video trends, but we're not gonna be making things like that. And again, what makes us different is that we're going to be taking donations, we're going to be doing things like that, and we're going to be able to repair things as well, even if it's not from our company, because part of reducing, reusing, and recycling is also repurposing, and that's something that I really want to stick by, because I think that, and especially as our team grows, I want to make sure that we're, encouraging people to use things for as long as they can, to the point that, maybe it's unusable. And again, our competitors are going to be different from us because we are absolutely going to be sticking to our morals 100%. We're going to be using donations. We're not going to be buying anything new, pretty much as we can, to make these bags, to make all of this stuff. So the fashion industry has a ton of trends all the time. Trends last about a month now. And unfortunately, that might affect our audience because we're not going to cater to that. But that means that, our things might be seen as more timeless. And again, some of our environmental factors, again, I'm not gonna be using AI at all. I'm gonna be very honest about our politics, that kind of thing. And unfortunately, I'm gonna need to move on. So again, we're just gonna stick to our morals. We're going to stick to our brand voice. I don't want to waver from that, because I think that a big part of being ethical is showing what we believe. And just kind of a summary of that too, I'm going to be very anti-AI, anti-racism, anti-Trump. And that might, again, and here, as I say here, it might cause people to not be, we're not going to be keeping up with trends, so people might not be as, excited about us. And, people might see our prices as higher than Shein or Temu or things like that, and might, decide to not buy from us because of it. Our target audience is going to be a couple of different people. I'm only going to go over one just because I need to keep it concise. I'm so sorry. But it's going to be people who care about the environment, who care about politics, and that are generally artists as well, that work minimum wage jobs. I see myself in that, and I think that, people who fall into this category in some way, and even if they don't, but this is our target audience, I can see those people becoming our customers. And then again, same thing here, just somebody who is educated, who cares about the world. And then again, same thing with this third person, right? I'm not going to go over too much in detail for the day in the life, but basically this person goes to class, they have a busy life, but they care about the world. So, measuring it, right? Well, for my brand, I want to make sure that they know what is our product? What are we about? And I believe the best way to do that is to increase engagement. I have a little bit more about metrics here, and I'll have a little bit more about metrics later. But essentially, we want to make sure people know exactly what they're buying from, and that's the best way to do that is through, increasing our content and, letting people see us, right? See what we're about, see behind the scenes. And again, here's just a smart goal about it. I'm not going to harp too much on this just because I have a lot to go over. But same thing here, we want people to see us and to receive us well. That would be our biggest goal, essentially. In the long run, we would want, to have more followers, to have more customers, to have more drops, right? But, to start with that, we want to build the community around our ethics and our morals first, if that makes sense. And as we get bigger, I want to be able to donate to communities in need. Moving on, to get to those audiences, we're going to have to use Instagram and TikTok. TikTok is going to be better for Gen Z, and that's who I can see most of myself in, and most of who I want to be part of our community. Not that, it has to be any specific kind of person, just that I think that Gen Z would most likely align more. And TikTok is a really good marketing tool, especially because it is so, not specific. And unfortunately, I don't have too much time, so I'm not going to go too deep into this, but TikTok is a really good spot for marketing to Gen Z, especially. And then same thing here with Instagram. Instagram is really great for millennials as well. Instagram is going to have a little bit more polished posts just because Instagram is a little bit more of a polished culture, but we're still going to have, reels that might be from TikTok. And then on TikTok would be a little bit more of silly things or process, just because I think that TikTok tends to be a little bit more unserious. And then in terms of our brand messaging, again, we just really want to be very specific about that we care about ethics and that we care about paying our employees correctly and that we care about supporting people, supporting marginalized communities. And this is just some statements about, how do we feel about sustainability? How do we care about, keeping people clear on what we are about? Moving on to key performance indicators, I have a list right here, but basically we just want to make sure that, we're not just looking at likes and comments, because likes and comments are not necessarily the best metric for us, especially because likes and comments don't necessarily guarantee that people are actually interacting with your content. So we want to see people subscribing to our blog or our that we will have eventually. We want to see that people are actually interacting with our content and not just oh, I'm just scrolling mindlessly, And then this is just a table that goes a little bit more into detail about that, and just describing how frequently are we going to report it, that kind of thing. This is just a continuation of that table. Same thing here, just another continuation of that table. Okay, and then we looked at this. This is essentially a fake report since I don't have a real brand to report on. So I used the Stu Kent Mimic app metrics. But essentially here we can see that the TikTok metrics I got were not the best. So we're going to try in the future with, different things we can get some analytics and we can get something to actually look at. And that way we can see who's interacting and how and what audience are we reaching right now versus what audience do we want to reach. Plus, getting out more content tends to help with not having the best metrics, but our TikTok metrics are definitely a lot better than our Instagram ones. Our Instagram ones are not great. They're not terrible, but they're not super great, just because there's nothing. But I think that, again, posting consistently and posting different kinds of posts will definitely help with that. And again, during the Stu Kent social mimic app, I learned that if you post on Facebook and you tailor to one specific persona that makes up most of your data and most of your audience, the Daypacker Tom one, he made up about 40% of the audience, and that's the one who I tailored it to. And whenever I tailored content to him, quote unquote, I got the best metrics and revenue and reach. So I'm going to try to apply that to this brand to hopefully see similar results. And again, the Mimic app really helped me learn that social media is not easy. Social media doesn't have like a formula that's one size fits all, right? It's all completely like very specific to the brand that we're actually looking at versus like, oh, just do this and you'll get famous. So what's next? Well, our hypothetical metrics aren't great, but we can improve them by looking at our KPIs, of course, and then also, increasing our amount of posts. And again, here's our hypothetical key takeaways. Again, our metrics aren't necessarily bad, but they're not necessarily great, and they can be fixed, though, through paying attention to metrics and paying attention to our goals and making sure that we're doing the things that we can to meet them. My total and final thoughts is that I have a good foundation and I have a starting place, but social media, again, is not an easy field, so we're going to take time to research our market and research the people who we are appealing to, and it might be really bad at first, and that's fine, because part of finding the correct audience is our stuff out there.